This is talk time. Last month, the federal, state and local governments shared, and share is the underlying word here, 17 billion naira less than they did the previous month. Now, that is due to falling revenue that has hit our states so hard. Most of them now struggle to pay workers' salaries. Many states were bailed out at the onset of the Muhammadu Buhari administration. And right now, some are reportedly seeking another bailout. The situation and the solution are what we're looking at this morning. And my guest, no better person to be doing this with, is economist Henry Boyo. Good morning. Nice to see you again.
Good morning.
Now, the federal government has actually insisted that the states should look for other sources of revenue rather than, depending on this shared, monies from the Federation account. The point is, how viable are these states? 36 in all.
I don't think the states need any prodding by the president to be aware that they need to be self-reliant. But over the years, states have been nurtured on the federal milk, which predominantly comes from the Niger Delta. You will recall that prior to the Civil War, the three main regions existed without oil, and each region had to look at ways of developing their own resources in order to be able to feed their citizens. A notable case was the case in the Western region when they decided, rightly so, that education should play a very important role in governance. And I dare say they were right, because there's enough evidence presently what has happened when education dipped, the quality of education dipped, when education began to be privatized, largely privatized, I think after President Obasanjo came in. So you will find that the Action Group, which was the party in power at that time in the Western region, knew that there was no free lunch anywhere. And they tied up their loins and decided that they were going to impose taxes. And everybody knew what the purpose of that tax was, and they committed themselves to it. And it was it wasn't easy for most people to pay, but they realized that this was very important. And this accounts for the leap in the quality of education and the quality of educated people that you found in the Western region at one time. But the days of self-reliance appear to have disappeared, receded into memory, because the states, particularly now, we had 36 states instead of the 3 regions. And the 36 states were created not on the basis of viability, but on the basis of political considerations and indeed personal considerations in some cases. They were not created for them to feed themselves. And of course, fortunately, the oil market was fairly buoyant, and everybody got caught on to the habit of waiting and receiving money at the end of every month without having to work for it. And indeed, when the soldiers came in, they were never held accountable for anything. State governors did what they liked, and very few of them realized that there was a need to even collect taxes. So I think we are paying, or the states are paying, for maybe not a fault of their own that the states were created in the first place.
By the military?
By the military, but the reality that they came, governance has been more on, how would I say, self-centeredness, rather than having to do something that would actually benefit the people and be self-sustaining in terms of income generation, revenue generation, and their own expenditure plans. Excuse me.
Are you saying then that the move from the regional system, that obtained then to this creation of states from 12 to 19, then 27 or
24
20 something, and then 36 states
plus one.
plus one, has actually done us more harm than good? Is that really the reason? Or wasn't the idea behind creation of states really to get governance to as many people as possible, especially at the local level, because the states are the drivers of the economy anyway?
I am not so certain that the reason for creating the states was that they should be able to reach the people. Yeah, in theory that may have been so. But really it was more like how to divide the booty,
The good old national cake.
the good old national cake, rather than how to create the good old national cake. So in that regard, it wasn't more in terms of we want you to be viable. It's more like, don't worry, we'll look after you. You don't even have to work. And this habit created the lethargy of in governance that people did not really go there for, and still with us. That culture is still with us. That people go into governance in order to be able to enrich themselves rather than to serve the people. Even as we speak, in spite or despite the poor revenue expectations of the states, you still find several examples of profligacy within the administration of most of the states. The number of special assistants, the number of vehicles allocated to each ministry, indeed after monetization, you were supposed to be able to take care of your own transport and things like that. But after taking the money for monetization, in most cases, they still continue to buy vehicles. And there are many instances where you find this kind of duplication. After setting out to say you want to save money, at the end of the day, you find that basically it was a ruse to be able to just divide divide money.
Now, beyond the obvious, which is what we have come to believe, that it's really an issue of corruption being at the root of it all. Is it really corruption, or the fact that we haven't been fortunate enough to have, according to some experts, to have people who actually understand the reason why they should actually seek for the office of governor in the first place. People who actually understand the reason why they should actually seek for the office of governor in the first place, who have ideas of, turning around or, taking the economy from whatever level it was, before they came on board, taking it to the next level. Is it not more of that, or is it a combination of all of this?
I think it's a question of the chicken and the egg.
Which one comes
Which
first?
came first, yeah, exactly. Corruption didn't just drop. Corruption had always been in the system. Indeed, there's hardly any country that you would say there isn't some element of corruption in public administration or in the administration of public funds. I think the old joke was that in the old regime before 1966, people stole 10%, and that was supposed to be bad, very, very bad. And for that, we had all the coups and, the war and everything that followed. But these days, it's more like do 10% and take away 90% of the... And to the desperation of most Nigerians, they find that the perpetrators of this type of crime, fraud or whatever, often get away scot-free or just with a slap on the wrist. Consequently, other people are encouraged to also try their luck. And when they do win elections, you must already worry that people tell you openly that they are investing in an election by selling their properties, their cars, and even borrowing money. Very few, I don't think anybody would do that if they truly wanted to serve.
Let's even come to the main issue here, which is, why, or the state of the states, the condition of the states right now, especially, or their viability, especially at a time when the oil is no longer, giving us the kind of monies that we expect. Are you concerned when you hear, even till date, governors say, look, we're not getting enough from the federation account. The dwindling funds we're getting is affecting payment of salaries and all the other, things that we're expected to deliver on. Let's take Bielsa, for example. I read only recently where the governor, actually complained that when he just became governor, he got as high as 18, 19 billion, from the federation account, but now it's down to less than 4 billion, and he's complaining about that. And what are you concerned when you hear state executives say this? What does it really imply?
It implies naturally that the object or the expectation of the people for good governance is a far cry from the expectations of the people who want to serve you, serve in inverted commas. The underlying culture of sharing is at the root of our constitution. We have to take, if you had come up with how do I say it, a philosophy that says you would pay to the center from whatever you get from your state, okay, so that the center could run the activities which are usually better run if it was done in a consolidated or collective fashion. Things like foreign service, monetary and fiscal policies and things like that. If you had that at the core of governance, it would be totally, totally different. But if, on the other hand, the issue is that of, I will be getting so much from the center every month, which is what Mr. Dixon is expecting. If you had said ab initio that what we have, what would drive each state is that depending on your population, the population of each state, you would pay so much to the center. Depending on the amount of economic activity that you have in your state, how successful it is, you will pay so much to the center. If, on the other hand, for reasons which are totally outside your control, like there's a drought or whatever, income expectations from your state should contract, then of course there will be provisions within the center from all the collections you have been making in the center to look after you. But this is not the case. So what you find is that people willfully increase their populations in order to be able to get more from the center, rather than say you are expecting so much more from the center because you have such a huge population. So the levy or tax you have to pay to the center should be higher than somebody who comes from, a state with a rather small population but has so much resources.
Now, is that where the debate over true federalism, of fiscal federalism and all of that should really be taken even more seriously than ever before?
I am certain that if we do not address the issue of fiscal federalism, we will continue to get into this kind of ugly spots, because the driving motivation in governance would be how much more can we get, rather than, what contribution can we make to the success of the economy. I think that is fundamental. We can't run away from that. We can keep postponing the day, but certainly if we do not embrace fiscal federalism, you will still have this mentality of it is my right because I have more people, or it is my right because my man is in power, or that type of thing, rather than the reverse of whatever you require from the state, from the federal treasury, you must also be making a commensurate contribution, no matter where you come from or where the state is. Until you arrive at that departure point, I think you would continue to have conflict in terms of the expectations of the people and the expectations of those who have chosen to serve them.
And their ability to deliver. Now, with the way things are right now and the federal government, I mean, the ordinary man on the street has come to realize that, look, it's time we actually moved away, from oil as a main revenue source. Is this an opportunity? I think I've asked you this. Is this a time, an opportunity that we really should grab? And should the states be championing this? I mean, if you look across Nigeria, there are those who would tell you that, look, Nigeria has about 1,600 natural resources in commercial quantity. Is it bitumen we're talking about, rubber, leather, and all of that? And each state has something. Is it time for us to really seriously begin to, beyond just paying lip service to the idea of moving away from oil, to actually, doing something concrete? And what steps do the states need to take right now?
Well, first they have to change the mindset of entitlement, of expecting something from the center. But let me say this, that the issue of states being able to, generate resources, generate income to be able to do other things, to a large extent, the responsibility for creating that type of enabling environment is not really within the ambit of the states. You see, an economy anywhere in the world is an integrated engine. And that engine, you spark it up with certain fuel. And the type of fuel you use for sparking up the engine, in this particular case, in all cases, as far as economies are concerned, are the fuel of low cost of funds. First of all, inflation, to make sure that inflation is never so high so as to deprive your people of income. Their income should not be depleting in terms of purchasing value on an annual basis, because when that happens, you are constricting consumer demand. And if you constrict consumer demand, you will find that there's very little motivation towards investments. People don't build factories to supply people who are not going to buy. So inflation is a part of that fuel that sparks the engine. On the other hand, there is also the issue of cost of funds. It is absolutely farcical to expect that any economic turnaround would happen in this country when you cannot address the issue of cost of funds coming down across the board to about 5 or 6%. When industrialists, investors have to go borrow at 20% plus, and you expect them to borrow in an environment where there is decreasing consumer demand, it doesn't work that way. The engine will not spark. So you need to be able to address those issues. The state governments cannot bring that about. That's a federal matter. And unfortunately, a lot of us take our sight off that and think states go and do this. The states cannot really, if you only have had committed state governors who are prepared to cut the wastages and plug the leakages and things like that. At the end of the day, their success or failure will depend on the parameters of the cost of funds and also the price rise.
And there was a time before now when state governments would go out there, to source for, go to the capital market, bond market, and all of that. Is that a likely reason why we're where we are? I'll let you answer that question. When we, after we come back from going to Osun State, where we went to find out from people exactly what they think. Should the allocation from the center continue, or should states fund their budgets, from internally generated revenue? And when we talk about IGR, what exactly are we talking about?